Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here, and this is a video I'm making because I think it could help some people, and it's a video about my first year of Open University study, which is studying my university degree from home. The reason I look a little bit more done up than usual is that I was out for a family meal this evening and I had a horrible panic attack coming on, and luckily my mum took me home. So my family are out having a meal, so I have a free house to make this video. It's a waste of a wonderful outfit and some really good makeup, but there you go. That's actually kind of relevant to the video because this kind of anxiety I have and these panic attacks in public, in like horrible crowded places like lecture theatres, is part of the reason that I couldn't go to like a proper go away from home university. So I'm going to break down this video into sections. I've made a plan for it, so if you see me looking over here, it's because I want to get all my points in. I really hope this will be educational and that it will help you. Maybe you're someone who's deciding whether or not you want to start with the Open University. I should say as well, like, no one's asked me to do this. It is going to be quite a positive video, but the Open University have nothing to do with this. I'm just a student with the Open University that wanted to share that experience with you all. So why did I decide to study from home? Well, the main reason is that I had a huge mental breakdown when I was in sixth form at school. So I was doing my A-levels and I was going through this huge, awful breakdown. I was really suicidal, my mental health was frankly terrible. I was barely able to stay in lessons in sixth form because of these panic attacks. I was missing, I think I missed something like 30% of my school year or something, and I was getting these letters saying, you know, you're not attending, this is bad. So yeah, I was struggling really badly already in sixth form. I got some good A-level results. Luckily, I'm quite a hard worker and I did a lot of work from home, so I got some good A-level results and I got some university offers. I got a university offer from is it Queen Mary's? Queen Mary's in London, and it was to study English literature and drama, which was what I wanted to do at that time. And I remember going up to look at the university, and that was a struggle in itself. That was sort of the first sign. I already knew deep down, I think, that it wasn't for me, but I didn't want to let people down. I think there's a stigma towards people who, although I went to a grammar school because I'm from Kent and we still have grammar schools, and there was a sort of stigma, like if you didn't go to uni then it was like a waste, and I wanted to impress my family and that sort of thing. So yeah, I went down there with my mum and my granddad, and that was a struggle. I started crying on the tube. Yeah, it was not a good trip, and the thought of doing that every day was kind of scary, but the interview went well and I basically got my place, but I had to turn it down. So in the end, I just sort of broke down to my family and just said, look, I don't think I can do this. And they were really understanding and amazing. There were quite a few years between me having a breakdown and just like stopping everything and me deciding to do the Open Uni course. My grandma suggested it back when I first had my breakdown, but I just wasn't ready for that, like emotionally. I was in a really bad place then, and now I'm 23 years old and I've just finished my first year. So I started when I was 22, which some people might think is quite late, but you start to learn as you go into Open University study that actually that's not late at all. And I think part of a huge problem we have in society is assuming that you have to do things in a certain order and by a certain time, and especially if you have mental illness or physical disability, which I don't have, but I'm sure it's the same. You feel this pressure to kind of keep up with everyone, and it's ridiculous. Like, you feel like you're being left behind and there's this huge stigma around it, but actually everyone goes at their own pace, and that's okay. And as you get older, you start to realise how ridiculous that sort of race element is. I'll talk about this later, but there are people I know from the Open University course who are like all different ages. Like, people of all different ages are doing the course. There's no stigma involved in the Open University kind of study, which is amazing because that was something I worried about a lot. So also I have really bad anxiety, so I can't travel. So I'm actually doing driving lessons at the moment. I'm hoping that will get me a little bit more independence, because at the moment I can only travel with a close family member, which is, you know, difficult for I have no social life basically, maybe, which is why I kind of am online so much. You know, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, why don't you just go outside? And it's sort of like, well, I would, but I can't do that without a person I trust with me because otherwise I have a panic attack and cry and have to come home. And even then, sometimes, as today proves, like, it's not enough. But yeah, there's no way I would have been able to travel to university or stay away from home. I can't do that. The anxiety of being alone at night is just too much. I can't really deal with that. I can't do public transport because it's too crowded, and I just genuinely freak out. And as weird as it sounds, you'll understand this if you have like panic disorder or something like that. I get on it and if I got on a bus, I would just be crying and probably scaring everyone during the journey. Also, I am in recovery, and I think I'm in one of the best places I've been in for a while currently, but I still have bad mental health days where some days I just don't want to get out of bed, and some days I am really manic, and some days I am really depressed. I don't have bipolar, by the way. I have a thing called borderline personality disorder, and I also have anxiety and depression and panic disorder, so it's a nice mix. But that does sort of, BPD can give you those like mood swings, and yeah, some days I really struggle. So that's going to be a challenge, I think, in later life, looking for work once I've got my degree, along with all the other challenges, but it's a challenge I'm ready and willing to face. And also, last of all, I did actually start study after I originally, I got my A-levels, and there was this time where I had no direction, there was just nothing in my life, and I thought, I was so depressed at that time, I was just basically, all I was thinking about was, I don't care, I'm probably going to kill myself anyway, and there was just nothing in my life. But my friend and I realised there were places on a year-long course at the local art university. We were both art students, and I did arts at A-level and I got an A, and that's probably down to my art teacher, actually. Who was just generally like, those art lessons were so good for my mental health, so I have a good relationship with art and yeah, creativity and that sort of thing. So I thought, yeah, that might be good, I'd quite like to do that. So we signed up to do a year of that, but I only stayed on for about 4 or 5 weeks because I found it too tough. It absolutely drained me. I would come home every night crying, or just sleeping straight away. I couldn't do the lecture theatres, I couldn't do the unpredictability of it. Even though we had like a set timetable, sometimes things would change around and I couldn't cope with it. One day it got so bad that I had a really bad panic attack and I locked myself in a toilet, and I had to get someone else in the bathroom to ring my home for me, and it was just this huge palaver. And then from that day on, after that huge panic attack and that breakdown I had there, I found, this sounds really ridiculous, but I found the place itself really triggering and awful, and I couldn't step in without having a panic attack. So obviously I had to end that course, unfortunately, although I had a really good 5 weeks there. Right, so why it took me so long to start my Open University degree. Like I said, my grandma suggested it when I first had my breakdown, but I just wasn't ready at all. I wasn't even, I can't even describe my mental state to you at that time. Like, it was very, very bad, and the more I look back at it, the more scary it is, because I realised quite how bad it was, you know, quite awful. I felt like for some reason that studying at home would be like giving up somehow, and that it was somehow not as good as studying away from home, which I realise now is ridiculous. So if you're someone who is like that yourself, maybe you're younger and you're in that position I was in, please don't feel affected by those pressures, because I know that schools can put that on and society and family can put that on, but actually it makes no difference at all in the grand scheme of things. You have to be ready, like psychologically, to engage in that course, otherwise you're not going to get your best results out of it. It's really not a race. Like, life is not like that. It's something I'm continually learning, and it's really saved me so much heartache and stress. Like, you do not have to do everything in a certain order. Sometimes you have to put your mental health first, or your physical health first, if that's the reason you're doing it. You have to look after yourself, and that is the priority. That seriously is the priority. I know that if I tried to push on too early, I don't know if I'd still be here. You have to be ready for it, and now I'm glad that I took that break, because now I feel like I am ready and I am giving it my best and I am getting the most out of it. Initially I did feel embarrassed that I was doing a course at home, but then again I felt even more embarrassed before that in the time period where I was doing nothing and I was at my very worst, when occasionally like a family friend would ask, you know, what are you doing? So what are you doing with your life? Because they remembered me as this sort of charismatic, ambitious, sort of intelligent person. I was always pretty good at school, like I got good grades at school and I worked really hard, and I always remember feeling embarrassed before that because the answer was nothing, and my mum and I used to just say, oh Claudia's suffered from an illness. We weren't even that comfortable with talking about mental illness at that point because of the stigma. So in a way it was a relief to be able to say I was doing a degree, but also in some ways at first I felt embarrassed because I thought, oh, this can't be as good, you know, it's not as good as a normal degree. And then I started to realise, as I will explain to you, that it is just as good, and actually in some ways better. Like, it can get more out of you, and yeah, I'll get to that later. So I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of studying from home, of doing a degree from home. So I've actually made a little list of the pros and the cons. So the first pro obviously is that you get to study on your own terms. So you get to choose the schedule. Like, you know how much you can do each day. And for someone who has a disability, like me, if you have a mental illness, that's so incredibly helpful, because you structure your day, of course, but you structure it on your own terms. So you can say to yourself, okay, I know that every so often I have a really bad day and I can't get out of bed. So what I'm going to do on my schedule of study is I'm going to make myself do a little bit extra on the good days, and that means that if I have a bad day, then I'm not behind. So you can kind of sort that stuff out for yourself. And it might sound complicated at first, but once you settle into it, it becomes like second nature, and you actually end up having some free time as well by the end of it, because I found that studying actually improved my mental health, so I was having less of those down days. I think it's a really good exercise in gaining confidence in yourself, because it really is, you're doing it on your own. I don't know if other people get this as well, but I always have this thing where I feel like, oh, it's a fluke that I do well. I've had good grades all the way through school, and I got really good A-levels, and I still sort of felt like, oh, it was a fluke somehow. And this has kind of proved to me, finishing my first year, and I did get a distinction on my first year. Haven't mentioned that yet, but I'm so proud of that. But yeah, it's proved to me that I do have that ambition, I do have that drive. And sometimes in society, if you are someone with mental illness, there's so much stigma, and people will try to make you feel like you're lazy, or that you're worthless, and that you can't contribute. And actually, the truth is that there are certain things, yes, that you can't do at certain times, but you're still capable. You just have to do things just slightly differently, and that's completely fine. And it's proved to me that with those allowances in place, I can really thrive and do really well, and it's really boosted my confidence, because it's made me realise that actually I am capable, and I am smart, and I am driven, and I am ambitious, and being mentally ill doesn't negate any of those qualities in me. Another pro is that there are so many courses to choose from. So the course I'm studying it's an arts and humanities course, but it's English literature with creative writing. So I'm going on to specialise in creative writing. My dream is to be a novelist or to write for television. I have this dream of writing for soap one day, so watch this space there. But there are so many courses to choose from. Honestly, you're really sport for choice. Like, there are some people as well, you can switch courses. So my first year I've done was arts and humanities, like the sort of base course. So quite a few people in arts and humanities were doing the same course as me to start them off. Next year we're sort of branching out into the more specialist subjects. But a lot of people have found, okay, well, I preferred the history element of this course, or I preferred the music element. So there's so much leeway. Like, you can decide at the end of the year, oh, okay, this was the part that I enjoyed the most, this is my strength, I'd like to go into that. So there's a lot of leeway. There's also lots of options for personal choice as you go along, because obviously, because the first year for me, it's arts and humanities, we all do the same first year, and it's the same, I think, in other subjects. So the subjects that are like similar to each other do the same first year, because it teaches you vital study skills, all that kind of thing. But there's lots of different options as you go. Like, for example, you have to do assignments, about 7 big assignments through the year. That's sort of like when you're at sixth form and you have to do like a big essay and it gets graded and that's your grade. But there are different options within that. So you'll study all the different aspects, like you'll study different chapters of your module, and then when it comes to the question, sometimes you can pick. So you can pick the more history-based one, or the literature-based one, or the music-based one. So there is a lot of scope for personal choice. And also it's really great because it lets you experience things you wouldn't necessarily imagine you'd enjoy, because I've really enjoyed doing, I knew I enjoyed history anyway, but I love doing that. I didn't enjoy the music so much, interestingly, because I'm a musician, and I really love the religious studies element as well, but ultimately my favourite is literature, so yeah, that's why I'm doing that next year. I've got my Pepsi here now, sorry, I was thirsty. Another pro to studying at home and studying with the Open University is that you end up meeting people, not face-to-face in my case, although you can do that because there are tutorials you can go to in your local area where people who are studying will go to together. I obviously can't do that because of my anxiety and my mental illness issues, so I do it all from home. But there is a lot of contact you can have with people from your course. So I'm actually part of, or I was part of, the first year Facebook group. And it's amazing because you see people's different stories. So you see why people are studying from home, and it's so interesting. Like, there are people of all different ages. There are parents who have young children who are studying in the night and trying to juggle childcare. There are people with physical illnesses, mental illnesses, and there's really no judgment. I found it so amazingly welcoming and fantastic, and you grow attached to people, and there's a real feeling of pride when you reach the end of your first year, and a real feeling of support. Yeah, it's just really good having that sort of forum where you can sort of panic together in the days before your assignment is due. There are also forums that you use that are actually run by the official Open University as well. I just chose to use a Facebook one too, but there are lots of ways you can connect with other people who are studying the same as you. So it's really not as lonely as it might seem at all. Like, there are lots of other people that are going through it at the same time, and it really helps you feel like this sort of community spirit, and you kind of spur each other on a bit. Okay, so moving on to the cons, of which I think there are definitely less. I think the first one is probably the social stigma surrounding it, but again, you will get past that. I certainly did anyway. At first, I did feel a bit like, oh, you know, I'm just studying from home and, you know, it's not the same as a normal degree, but actually it is. It's a lot of work, and you do it at the same time as well as the people who are studying at other universities, because my brother was doing his first year the same as I was doing mine. And we would often have assignment dates at the same time, like on literally the same day. So it felt good, it felt really good. But yeah, that can be hard to deal with at first, I will admit. It does feel a bit odd settling into it. And it takes you a while to understand that you are actually a university student. It does take you a little while, but eventually you will get there. And I watch University Challenge sometimes. I can't answer any of the questions, it's too smart for me. But sometimes the Open University are on there, so that made me feel good. So another con is that you don't get to socialise as much. This is a pretty obvious one. Because you're not living on campus, you don't have things like freshers. I mean, there is a freshers week for the Open University, but it's more online activities, getting to know people, getting to know how it all works, but you don't have that social life aspect. So that is a con, I think. But to someone like me who wouldn't be able to do that anyway because of the mental illness, it's no issue to me whatsoever, to be honest. I also think in some ways it's a good thing, because I know that it can be really distracting if you have the opportunity to go out all the time and party, and my brother Dan has fallen prey to that slightly. Dan's a bit of a party animal. He's kind of the opposite to me like that. I'm kind of more like studious, whereas Dan likes to have a good social life. So in a way I feel like I dodged a bullet, because I don't have that temptation that people like Dan do, or people who are at university. Like, I can, really structure stuff and not get distracted by going out with people and having a good time. Another con is that I suppose sorting it out in the first place is a bit of a headache, but I think that's the same with any university, to be honest, because obviously I signed up for my year at art university, which I didn't complete, but I had to do the sign-up process, and it was pretty much the same. You have to sort out your student finance, obviously, and I helped Dan with his application to university as well, and it's pretty much the same. I think whatever university you're at, it's a bit of a headache, and it can be a struggle if you're someone with mental illness or who struggles with concentration, that sort of thing. But if you persevere with it, and I know it's boring and it's complicated and but everyone has to go through it, and once it's out of the way, it's out of the way for the year. I suppose one more con is that you have tutors assigned to you with the Open University, so I will go into this in a bit more detail. I suppose I could do that now, but basically how it works is you do it like a normal university course. So you have books and DVDs that come to your house at the beginning of the year. You have a schedule on your module website of what you have to do by when, so you know that you're staying on track. You have assignments that have to be in on certain dates. You have a tutor that's assigned to you. So this tutor will be assigned to several students, but they'll be your own tutor. You'll have their phone number, their email address, and you can call them or email them pretty much all the time, depending on the tutor. I had a really fantastic tutor this year, and I hope I have her again for next year. She was very understanding with my mental health issues, but I'm told that lots of people had a very positive experience in that way. There's also the opportunity, if you have a tutor and you let them know about, the personal issues, that you might have as a student, they make allowances for you. So there is actually a grace period with the Open University. There was with my tutor. So that kind of allows for bad mental health periods, or people whose disability has made things a bit difficult, or there's been a family bereavement or something. It's very reasonable. I didn't have to use the grace period once. Luckily, I didn't have any of those setbacks, but the tutors are very understanding. It's not like school or sixth form where they're really strict and mean to you. I mean, you're having a conversation with another adult who's there to help you and is there to guide you, and if you have any queries, you can just contact them and you'll build a relationship with your tutor, hopefully. I certainly trusted my tutor, and I ended up ringing her before my big assignments and just going through this huge bullet point list and like, help me, I don't know what I'm doing, but she gave me a lot of confidence and I'm very grateful to her. So obviously, I suppose it is a con that you don't get to see your tutor face to face, but you still have that contact with them as much as you'd like, to be honest. And I found that extremely helpful. I couldn't really have asked for any more, and I don't think that seeing my tutor face to face would have made any difference, to be honest. I can imagine people who have difficulty talking on the phone might find that difficult, but you can do it via email. With me, that varies with my mental health issues, so sometimes I just do not answer the phone at all and I just don't want to hear from anyone, and when I was having weeks or days like that, I would just communicate with my tutor via email, and she was really understanding, and when I felt well enough to do it, I rang her. So there's lots of options for people who have mental health issues especially. Okay, so I think we've reached the end of the video. So overall, I would definitely recommend studying from home. It's absolutely changed my life, and I can't even tell you what it's done so much for my confidence as a student, as a human being, as a person. It's changed my outlook on everything, to be honest. It's really helped me in my own mental health recovery because it's made me realise that there's no set way of doing things. Like, we all have our goals and some of us will have different obstacles. I think everyone has different obstacles, and some of us that can be physical or mental disability, and that's fine. We just have to go around the obstacle. We can't just go straight through like some people, but that's fine. There are ways of doing that. Yeah, I've just found that studying with the Open University has been amazing. I've really taken to it. I'm someone who loves learning. I have a real passion for it, and I'm so excited for my next year. I'm actually doing 2 parts of the course at the same time next year because I am a bit of a nerd and I enjoyed it so much. So I'm doing 2 years compressed into 1 next year, and because my grades were good, they said they would allow me to do that. So I'm really excited to get going on that, and I actually feel a bit bereft and a bit weird because it's the summer holidays right now and I don't have my study. Like, it really keeps me on the straight and narrow. It's done such wonders for my mental health having that schedule. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about studying with the Open University, then you can ask me in the comments and I'll try and answer those for you. It's been such a positive experience for me, so I just really wanted to try and get rid of some of that stigma, and I'm aiming this at the sort of person that I was before, who would have thought, oh, I don't want to do it, it feels like failing. It's not failing, my friend. It will change your life for the better. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon for another video. Love you loads. Bye!